Good afternoon, everybody. It's June 24th, Friday in the afternoon, and I have to laugh a little bit because Lindsay and I made a video yesterday only to realize that the sound on the camera went about 2 seconds into the video. So I'm trying to do the whole thing again today. Hopefully we'll get through without any problems. It's a beautiful day. It's time for us to update you on everything Venetian Isles. Before we start talking about the clubhouse, which is what most of these videos are always about, we wanted to take the opportunity to talk to everybody about a few housekeeping items that for most people probably don't apply, but they're worth mentioning. Everybody knows that the roads are done and the speed bumps are in and things are moving smoothly. What we have noticed, though, is very strange thing that's happening. Typically, we don't have accidents at the front gates with people hitting the gates as they leave more than once or twice a year. Like once every 6 months, somebody will come and they scrape their mirror because the gate was closing or they hit the gate for some reason. We've had 6 incidents in the last month, which is highly unusual. So the only thing I can imagine is folks are frustrated because they're only going 25 miles an hour, and once you're past that last speed hump, you're racing through the gate. Please take care when you're going there not to do that, because we do have cameras there. They're all videotaped. It is very clear there's nothing wrong with the gates. The people that are hitting the gates are hitting the gates, and they are damaging the gates, which we have to repair. They're damaging your cars. There's nothing wrong with the gate. There's nothing wrong with the sensor. Everybody's frustrated. Let's just take a breath and try to be a little more careful, because the gates can't take being beat up like that all the time, and we know you don't want to go through the hassle of fixing your car either. Second order of housekeeping is talking about ACC form submittal. Everybody knows that if you're going to do any major work on your property in terms of landscaping, changing light fixtures, adding gutters, changing a roof, things of that nature, you need to file an ACC application with your individual community. Those forms are available on the website. And if you're having trouble navigating the website, you can certainly get them from the office. What requires an ACC? We need to clarify that a little bit, because if you're just going to Home Depot and you're putting in a few flats of annuals, you don't need an ACC for that. No one's going to bother you with that. If you're replacing a few things, you really don't need an ACC for that. If you're going to cut down a tree, you need an ACC. If Pena or some other landscaping company is going to come in and do a major pruning on a tree for you because either it's diseased or you want to have more shade or less shade or something like that, it's always best to just file the ACC. It doesn't take long to get them approved, and this way you make sure ahead of time you're not running afoul of anything that you may not be aware of. For example, when you go to cut one of the large trees, it may look to you like, this is a big old tree, I'm just going to cut it. Well, under the county guidelines, you're not allowed to cut more than 25% of the canopy of any hardwood tree in any given year. The average person's not going to know that. Your landscaper probably knows it, but he's not going to give you an education necessarily on what you can and can't do without getting into trouble. Keeping in mind that the county is always in here doing inspections for other things. We don't invite them in, and we're not policing what's happening on your individual property. But in the event that you do get caught doing something, whether it's accidental or not, the fines are fairly significant, and the cost of taking out a tree and replacing the tree are fairly significant. So again, not trying to run a military camp where you can't do what you want to do, but we want to make sure that you're not running afoul of things that you would not be aware of because you're not used to dealing with this type of stuff. Enough about ACCs. Let's get more to the topic that everybody wants to know about, the swimming pool. So Lynthia, let's take a picture. We're up on the pool deck outside the future cocktail lounge with this beautiful view that you'll all be able to enjoy someday soon. You can see Lynthia is showing you right now the lap pool. The lap pool is finished. We are waiting for the new ladders to come and things like that. You can see at about 1 o'clock there that the top of that canopy's been taken off. We are using our employees in-house to sandblast these, get them primed, fixed, painted so that we are ready for new canopies. The same over here at about 11 o'clock. You have another canopy, another canopy. All of those are going to change so that we don't have the terracotta color anymore. They're going to match the new color scheme. So the poles themselves, I believe, are silver and the canopies are blue. It's either that or they're cocoa brown like this espresso with silver on top. Off the top of my head, I have to tell you, I don't remember right this second, but either way, they're beautiful and they will be done as part of the project so everything looks like it belongs together. Let's take a little look here at the resistance pool. The resistance pool, for the folks that are new to the community, this is basically your exercise pool that creates a current. If you look at the big blue stripe on the bottom of that pool, that is a tiled area where there are jets that shoot out water and create the current in the pool. We knew we had a leak in the pool, and as usual, we would assume that it was in the lines. The pool is 20 years old. It turns out the leak was not in the lines. The leak is actually in the reservoir holding tanks underneath those areas. So they have been dug out, refiberglassed. There's no more leak in that. The tiles have been installed. Hopefully, if the weather holds out this weekend, they may even diamond bright this pool, so it will look as beautiful as the other pool, and then the spa will be done. It's fairly apparent that in terms of getting the pools themselves done and running, those will be done long in advance of when the clubhouse is ready to be open. We will still have those for sure by September. That doesn't mean that the pools are going to open in September. We're standing up here for a reason. The reason is, if you pan down with the camera, look at how close we are. This is an active construction site that is controlled by the county. You're within 6 foot of the edge of that pool. If the county has to say to you, you can go as Venetian Isles residents and swim in that pool while the construction's going on, what do you really think the chances of that happening are? If I were a civil servant in a job that don't want to lose my pension, I would say, you know what, the people of Venetian Isles can wait another 3 or 4 weeks till the construction's done for the pool to be open. So I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, but even if the Department of Health gives us that permit to use the pool back, I find it highly unlikely that anyone in the county is going to say to us, oh sure, go ahead and swim and be on a lounge chair within a hand's distance of the site of the construction. Regardless of anything's going on, I can't imagine how anyone's going to do that. So I just want to set your expectations correctly. The good news is the clubhouse is not far behind. The clubhouse has got, I think the last progress report we got said is 92% done. I mean, it's moving along. It's waiting for key ingredients, supplies, for lack of a better word, for us to move forward. We'll talk about those in a few minutes. Somebody asked a question. I don't believe it. I remember whether it was in the pickleball courts or walking to the fitness center, and they said, you know, how come we're not working overtime on the weekends to get this thing done? Well, we were working overtime way back when we were putting the roof on. If you remember back in January, crews were here all the time. There's no problem with getting people to work overtime. The problem is that if we were to have them work overtime, there's nothing for them to do, because you can't do things without the electric service being changed over. You can't do things without the steel showing up for certain things. So while it looks frustrating because it looks like nothing's going on, there's plenty going on. It's going to come when it's going to come. The good news is that we've spoken about this breaker to change the service of the electric from 1600 amps to 2000. We have email confirmation that it is actually shipped. So that means it is supposed to be here on July 3rd. That is phenomenal, because that means we can finally de-energize the building, get FPL to come out, re-energize the building, and we will have enough electricity finally to make the new place work. Imagine trying to put down carpet in a building that doesn't have enough electric to support an air conditioning system or the elevator or whatever it happens to be to keep the temperature controlled. You can't put down carpet if there's humidity in the building. You know how that's going to work out. So the good news is that is actually on schedule to arrive. If you take a look back behind us at this tarp that's on the roof, some of you have noticed this probably. The tarp that's up there is up there on an old air conditioning unit. That is not a new air conditioning unit with a problem. That is the air conditioning unit, PAC Unit 5, that we are waiting for. The delay with that, again, this has been ordered probably a year ago at this point. The problem is the variable frequency drive that's part of the unit that Carrier builds and sends to us was delayed from China. They supposedly have it, they are assembling it, and it's going to be delivered. Again, I say supposed because I'm not sure what's going on in everybody's personal life, but I know for myself, people are promising lots and lots of things, and the day comes and it goes, and we really just have no control over that. But they have told us this unit is ready to be shipped. Once it's shipped, the tarp will come down. The tarp is on there now because when there's really, really heavy rain, on the west side there are louvers on there, and the rain goes in those louvers, and we want to make sure that we don't damage anything in the building for now. So this is not a problem. I'm answering that question just because some people have asked about it. While we're on the topic of the key items that we're waiting for to keep the construction moving, every week or two we get another surprise that has nothing to do with the project and everything to do with the project. The one that came it's about 3 weeks ago at this point, is, if you remember in an old video, I mentioned that we had to screen all of the air conditioning units on the roof. So let's look over here by this side of the building. You can see those big air handler units up there. Since the project is not really a renovation because the cost of the project has gone beyond the 30% mark, you have to bring everything up to the current code. We knew this going in, it's not a problem. In order to pass our final inspection with the landscape division of the county, they are going to require that you can't see those air conditioning units from the parking lot or the ground. We made all the arrangements to have a custom enclosure made on the roof on both sides, and it was about $125,000 because it's not just putting up a fence so you don't see them. It has to be a steel structure that can withstand Category 5 hurricanes, because we're in that part of Florida that's subject to it. That means there are only a few people that actually make those, and they got to be made a certain way. We contracted a long time ago for that to be done, and 3 weeks ago the company was nice enough to send us back our deposit check so we don't have to fight them in court, and saying basically due to supply and labor shortages they can't fulfill their contract, so here's your money back. That puts us in a rather crappy place because now we're months and months later now having to source somebody to do that work, and we have to pay whatever the hell it's going to cost to get it done. I point that out because there are loads and loads of things happening on a daily basis for the general contractor and everybody else that cause delays in us getting the CO. One good thing is we have a guaranteed maximum price for the actual structure of the building. So 99% of the cost changes are borne by Hedrick Brothers, not us. So that is a wonderful thing that the board and everybody did way back before COVID. We got a guaranteed maximum price. So we're not subject to those. This particular item, we are subject to that cost because it's not part of the project, because the project was not contemplated to be bringing everything up to code, because it was a renovation, not a redoing of the whole thing. That's neither here nor there. We're going to get it done. We're going to pay for it. The other good thing, if there is a good thing, is that particular issue, when it's on the punch list of things that an inspector wants done, we can make the argument that that is not a life safety issue. It's an aesthetic issue. And as an aesthetic issue, they should give us a temporary CO, so we'll be able to use the building and start putting furniture and things in without having that done, as long as we do it within a certain amount of time. So all is not lost. It's really setting the stage of what's going on. I don't want folks to think, sometimes people think that we're hiding things. And when I say we're, they think the board, castle, whatever. That's not the case at all. If I got on and made a video every day about the 2 or 3 things like that happen on a daily basis, you'd all be pulling your hair out and think this thing's never going to get done. So it is managed. It is on track. We're going to get it to you as fast as you can, and I think most people know that. And with all the other craziness that's going on in the world, we're not immune to that just because we're inside the walls of here. Does that help us with a time frame? Doesn't really help me with a time frame. If we revisit this again in the second week of July, which is when I'll probably do the next video, if that air conditioning unit's here and if that electric switch is in and if the carpet's going in, we're going to have a much better understanding of when we're going to open. Do I think it's going to be before the end of the year? Absolutely, positively. I sure as hell hope so, because we have a Cobra breakfast here for 300 some odd people in December, and we have lots of other things planned for you. I don't see why it would not be done before then, but I'm giving up on giving you dates because it's really a waste of time because it's not in anyone's control. The good news is it is moving forward. The end product is beautiful. It's worth the wait. You've waited this long. We all want to get back in that pool. We're going to get there as soon as we can. Lynthia, just show me this list just to make sure I covered everything. Oh, okay. So the last thing that I want to talk about, I know that's a timeline. It's a very broad timeline. The last thing I want to talk about is some people have come, residents, and they've asked very nicely, they're not mad or anything, they're asking questions like, we don't understand, why doesn't the board just tell us what the assessment's going to be? Or why don't they tell us how much we're going to have to pay? Well, again, it's very simple. The board can't share what they don't know. Currently, we are still saying the same thing we've always said. We have enough money to finish the project without an assessment. And we revisit that probably every 2 weeks. There are myriad spreadsheets that show all the things that have to still be finished, where they're coming from, how they're getting paid for. So there is no panic button at this moment between the line of credit and the accumulated surplus that we had when we started and the reserves. There's enough money to get the doors open. That doesn't mean we're broke afterwards either. Obviously, it wouldn't be prudent to do that. So is there never going to be an assessment? No one can tell you that, because if the county comes and says, oh, you need something else, well, then we got to pay for it. If some other vendor calls up tomorrow and says, by the way, we're out of business, you got to go pound sand, and it takes us another 4 months to get built, it's going to cost more money. I think you can all understand that the board, Castle, the general contractor, none of us have any control over any of that, any more than we have control over $5 gas and $10 bacon, and that I can't buy Wonder Bread on the shelf. I got to take Arnold because that's what showed up that day. It's a very different world. So we will share with you that information in terms of whether there is going to be an assessment or not as it becomes available. But right now, we don't contemplate an assessment at all. Will your HOA dues go up? I don't have to tell you they're going to go up. It has nothing to do with the clubhouse. We just got our insurance renewals. Our insurance renewals for the Master Association are almost 100% more than they were last year. Just like your homeowner's insurance is going up because of your roofs and all the insurance claims they've had, we can't do anything about that. The mulching has gone up. The landscaping's gone up. Everything has gone up, no different than in your own house. So yes, the Master Association dues are going to go up. Absolutely. Your community dues are going to go up. Is it significant? Well, that all depends on what you think significant is. But we're not immune to any of that. Obviously, those costs are going to go up. Are they going to go up relative to the clubhouse? Well, that's another conversation. We are currently paying interest only on our line of credit. Our line of credit will wind up being the full $9 million that we thought it's going to be. Already in your budget, we have, I believe it's $37, $38 a month in interest to cover that. The difference for when this becomes a fully amortizing loan in March is going to be covered by the food and beverage sales and the event sales that happen at the clubhouse. That is why, unlike the other communities, Venetian Isles is doing all of this stuff in-house. So when the cash register rings, it's not going to Flakowitz, it's not going to Reuven's, it's not going to some caterer, it's not going to Castle. It is going to Venetian Isles Community Association. So whatever profit there is from running these events and buying cocktails is going to be used to pay the mortgage on the building. Because there's only one place to get the money from, folks, and that is the residents. So our choice is either hand you a bill and say, write me a check, which nobody wants to do, or come, eat, drink, have fun, bring your friends, and all of that profit will go to pay down the mortgage. Our goal is to make it so that we are paying that down through those sources of revenue that we never had before, and so that what we do have in to deal with interest will be enough. So keep your fingers crossed, come use it, come enjoy it when it opens, and understand this has nothing to do with your management company in Castle. It has nothing to do with a caterer. It has all to do with how to give everybody what they asked for and wanted as a beautiful community to live in and use, while paying for it without saying to you, write me a check. So enough of my soapbox. I don't mean it to be that way. I'm just trying to answer questions that I hear coming up in the community. Your board, Master Board, is fully aware of all of these things. There are many conversations going on about rules and regulations and how things are going to operate. They are trying to come up with alternatives to present to you about things like whether you can have guests in the card room, where the smoking area is going to be, can you have a private party in the building as long as it doesn't interfere with everybody else that's doing something. There are myriad topics. How do you check in at the front desk? How do you get an ID card? Do my kids come for free? If I want my grandchildren to be able to buy a hot dog on my house account at the window, how does that work? So all of that's in the works. Anything you've thought of will be answered. While we're on this topic, the week of the 11th of July, we are going to have a Zoom meeting for the Master Association. You can all mark your calendars. I believe it's Wednesday the 13th at 6 p.m. Subject to change. We will mail that out, but we will send out an e-blast. At that point in time, we will have a Zoom. We'll be able to answer even more questions, and then you can have the opportunity to ask questions for anything that maybe we haven't covered. Everybody stay safe and have a wonderful weekend.